Hi, this is Ben Christo of the Sisters of Mercy, and we're looking forward to coming over and playing in New Zealand and Australia from the 24th of October through to November the 5th or 6th.
You were right, the 25th of October through to November the 5th, but you were pretty close, mate. Good on you.
not bad, right?
Not a bad effort, mate. So as you say, man, Sisters of Mercy return to Australia later this month for a run of shows starting in Auckland on the 25th before going through Wellington, Brisbane, Sydney, Adelaide and Perth and finishing in Melbourne on November the 5th. So what delightful things have you got in store for us, mate?
So it'll be a good show in terms of mix of classics and new songs. And yeah, I mean, it will be the result of pretty much a year's, well, not a year, but since February, March time, the band's been working and we've been sort of working together on material and also a lot of touring festivals and stuff. So the culmination of 2022's work that we've done together across the course of some of shows in that part of the world.
Yeah, cool. So describe a typical Sisters of Mercy show for us, mate, if there is such thing.
Well, I think we tend to have, there's definitely a sense of sort of narrative progression. We start the show and there's definitely a kind of a sense of slowly building kind of tension and excitement. So to begin the show, it's quite sort of quite sort of still and the sense of sort of foreboding, and then as the show escalates, we become more animated and the lights do the same sort of thing. So I think rather than coming out and it being like on 10 straight away, there's a gradual climb throughout the set, which feels quite natural. And we haven't even really planned it. It just seems to have happened organically. And then once we realised that what was developed, we leaned into it. So I think that's quite a nice combination of something where there is a sense of theatricality and narrative to it, whilst it not being something that we've imposed explicitly to begin with.
Yeah. So more than, or about half of your set list is made up of new and unreleased songs. So how do they generally go down with the crowd when people might not have heard them before?
It's a really good question. And initially I was a little bit, I felt a little bit daunted about the concept of presenting a crowd with that many new songs in one set. But I was very happy to discover that because what we've written with this new material sounds so much like this band, yet a fresh version of this band, that people watch it and the response that we get is so overwhelmingly positive, because even though they don't know the songs, it sounds like the band they've come to see, and yet it sounds like the band they've come to see and then some. And I guess a fitting analogy could be if you go to the movies to see a film because it's got an actor in it you really like, you don't necessarily, it doesn't matter that you don't know what's going to happen in the story or if you've never seen it before, because you like that actor. Yeah. And I think as long as that actor is performing in a way that you feel is in keeping with his or her, I guess, identity as you know them, brand identity as you know the persona, then you feel happy and you feel enthused. And also there was the factor that I was quite surprised that I saw a lot of people singing along to songs that well, how did they know this? And that they'd seen it previously on a YouTube recording from the night before or the week before or whatever. And it was really meant a lot to me that people were able to sort of latch onto the songs with such expedience, because the songs must be catchy and they must be memorable.
True. Now, I know a lot of bands, like, they feed off the crowd, and big part of that is the crowd singing back at them and stuff. So do you like mix it up a bit so you've got some songs that might be familiar with the newer ones, so you're sort of not getting that blank spot where people aren't know any music, I guess?
Yeah, we tried to make a balance of it. So I think if there was the ratio, you'd probably want to do maybe like, certainly in the front end of the set and the middle of the set, you might want to do something where you have maybe out of every 4 songs, you've got one or two old ones. Yeah. And although I think we are a little bit bolder than most bands, that we might even make the ratio 3 new to 1 old. Yeah. And I think, again, because that stylistically the songs are what people like about the band, it's rather than, oh no, they're doing their new stuff. And the new stuff isn't anything like what the band is. Yeah, we've reinvented ourselves. But there was a Swedish reviewer who came to one of the shows, and he surmised it really succinctly, and he said it's as if this is the fourth movie in the installment of the Sisters series. As in, if you think each record and each era would to be a movie, then this is a fitting, and it's a good, it's a good fourth movie, and it's great, and it reminds you of why you love this movie franchise. So it's not Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's good. So that I think that's what's really nice about it.
Yeah. And the press release refers to your light show as having been derived from the Big Bang. Now, what does it mean by that? Do you have any idea? I've got no idea.
Well, I wasn't there at the Big Bang, so it's difficult for me to be able to make that comparison. Or was I? I think there's a definite theatricality to the lighting. It's not just randomly, hey, let's just chuck everything at the stage at all times. What's interesting about our lights is it tends to be the lighting acts as a landscape through we choose to navigate. So rather than it being the light follows you to somewhere, the light is on and you choose if you want to go over to it or not, which is quite different from most sort of most bands' relationship with the lights. So it's almost like it's scenery for us, and we sort of choose to move in and out of it as we see fit.
Sounds good. No, Sisters of Mercy formed back in Leeds back in 1980, which is over 40 years ago, mate. And you don't look 40 years old to me. So how long have you been with the band for?
I joined in 2006. My first show was in 2006, February the 16th in Las Vegas.
Right. So how did you go, like, joining and fitting in with a band with so much history?
Well, it was a little bit daunting because I was actually a fan of the band, and I've told the story a few times about how I ended up joining, and it was I was auditioning for something that I didn't even know that I was auditioning for. As in, the nature of the audition was I was asked to come and audition for a band who were going on a tour, but no more details were really given, other than it sounds like a combination of Motorhead and U2, which I think there's a lot of truth in that. There's a driving heavy quality to it, a melodic ethereal quality to it that sort of come together, and so. And it was only during the audition that I even figured out who I was auditioning for, because I think a lot to do with how you recognize bands is to do with context, and recognize anybody is to do with context. So, for example, there was a good example of this is I was playing in another band a couple of years ago, and into the dressing room walked this sort of red-haired man, middle-aged man, and in black, and I thought, who's this bloke who's just walked in? Is he like one of the venue staff? And it took me a good sort of 10 seconds to realize it was James Hetfield of Metallica.
Oh, bullshit.
Because I wasn't expecting him to walk into the dressing room. So context is everything. And this situation, I was walking into the audition for Sister Mercy, having not really seen any pictures of the band recently, and not really knowing about the lineup, because I was a fan, but not a fan to the point where I was following their every move. And it was only the sound of the music that they were asking me to play, which retrospectively I understand to be newer songs they hadn't recorded, but it was stylistically similar to what I knew the Sisters to be. So I thought, okay, look, let's just take a chance here. I'm going to now on the guitar play a famous Sisters riff and see if anybody in this room reacts. Nothing to lose. And I played one of the classic songs, and one of the guys goes, "That's one of our songs." And at that point, I was so nervous. I remember vividly, I looked down and my hands are shaking, and I was so nervous I could barely play. But it's okay, because I'd already had a good half an hour before I did that.
Right, yeah.
To be in the room, to be like, "Oh, can you play this? Yeah. Do you want to solo over this? All right." And just feel a little bit flippant and blasé about the whole thing, because I wasn't under that immense pressure of, this could be the thing that changes your life, which I would have been thinking had I have known it was them.
That's so cool. So the story behind Sisters of Mercy is pretty famous, about only having released 3 albums. And the last one back in 1990 for reasons that they're pretty damn brave reasons, but I admire the band for taking that stance. But from your point of view, like, do you wish there has been more? Like, would you like to make more records, or are you happy with that stance?
I often wonder, what would it have been like if the band had kept producing albums every 2 or 3 years through the 90s? Particularly because there was such a shift musically round about 93, 94 with alternative music, where in 92 and 93, just about, it was still cool to like classic rock, hard rock, glam rock. And then in 94, it really wasn't. You had to like grunge. There's such a quick changeover. And I wonder where the Sisters would have fit into that, because to a certain degree, with the land of it, there were elements of sort of classic rock and that production level of sort of hard rock, arena rock, which then everything became so minimal in the 90s. You had to draw back on everything, on the production. The performances were kind of purposely like not as good. There was this sort of understated quality. And given that the Sisters are a band where there's a real cinematic hugeness to it, I do wonder, what would have an album sounded like from the Sisters of Mercy in 1995? What would the production be like, the songwriting, the performances? So that's always, in that side, I've always been intrigued as to know what would the band have sounded like. Excited about the idea. I mean, writing new songs has been great fun. And working to write for a band that inspired me and who I admire as I was growing up has been an incredible honor. So I don't know, I think the writing of the songs alone has been super fun. And to immortalize them on an album would be really meaningful and very special to me. Generally, that it would take to record and release an album can take some of the magic out of the actual creativity and the fun of it. So yeah, I think there's two sides to it, definitely.
Cool. All right, mate, well, we'll leave it there. Mate, thanks very much for your time. I'm looking forward to catching up. I'll probably come along to the Brisbane show and catch up and have a beer perhaps. And
awesome, my man. Brilliant. Nice one. Thanks so much, Chris. Thanks you.
No worries, mate. Take care.
Cheers, buddy.